The darkness of space stretched endlessly around the colony ship Horizon. Inside the massive vessel, 10,000 humans slept in cryopods, frozen in time for 300 years. They were traveling to a new world, a fresh start for humanity among the stars. But something had gone wrong. Captain Jake Morrison woke up first. His eyes opened slowly as the cryopod drained the freezing liquid around him. The pod door hissed open, and Jake fell forward onto the cold metal floor. His muscles ached. His throat burned. He coughed and gasped for air. Jake looked around the cryo bay. Emergency lights flashed red. That was not normal. The ship should have woken him gently, with soft lights and calm music. Instead, alarms blared in the distance. He dragged himself to the console and checked the ship status. His heart sank. The Horizon had been pulled off course. They were not anywhere near their destination. 300 years had passed, but they were in the wrong part of space. Jake needed help. He went to the crew section and started waking the others. First was Lisa Grant, the pilot. She woke up confused and scared. Then came Tommy Hayes, the engineer. After him was Dr. Karen Wells, the medical officer. Finally, Danny Brooks, the security chief, opened his eyes. They all gathered in the command center. Tommy checked the damage reports. The ship had been hit by some kind of energy pulse. It knocked them off course and damaged several systems. Lisa looked pale. She pointed at the navigation screen. The star maps were all wrong. They were in an unknown sector of space. Jake turned to the communications officer. He told the ship computer to scan for signals. What they found made everyone go quiet. The space around them was filled with debris. Broken stations floated in the void. Destroyed ships drifted past them. And everywhere, they picked up old distress signals. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Dr. Karen played one of the signals. It was in an alien language, but the ship computer translated it. The message was simple and terrifying. A species called the Devourers had attacked. They had destroyed entire civilizations. They showed no mercy. Jake felt cold despite the warm air in the command center. 300 years ago, when they left Earth, the galaxy was supposed to be peaceful. There were many alien races ready to welcome humanity. But something had changed. Danny pulled up more data. The Devourers had appeared 200 years ago. They came from beyond known space with powerful weapons and huge fleets. They conquered world after world. They enslaved entire populations. Anyone who resisted was destroyed completely. Tommy found video files in the wreckage nearby. He played them on the main screen. The crew watched in horror. The Devourers were brutal. They bombed cities from orbit. They burned forests. They took prisoners and used them as slaves in their mines and factories. The aliens in the videos looked terrified. They begged for help that never came. Their weapons barely scratched the Devourer ships. Their defenses crumbled in hours. Lisa asked the question everyone was thinking. Where were the great civilizations they were supposed to meet? Where were the peaceful traders and explorers? The answer came from the data logs. Most were dead. The rest were hiding or enslaved. The galaxy humanity had hoped to join was now a place of fear and darkness. Jake made a decision. They needed to stay hidden and learn more. He ordered the ship to run silent. All non-essential systems went dark. The Horizon drifted like another piece of wreckage. For 3 days, they listened and watched. They intercepted Devourer communications. The language was harsh and cold. The Devourers talked about their empire like it was a machine. Worlds were resources. People were tools. Nothing else mattered. Dr. Karen studied the medical data from the debris. She made a strange discovery. The alien species they found were physically weak. Their bones were fragile. Their muscles were small. Even their reaction times were slow. She compared the data to human biology. Humans were stronger. Humans were faster. Humans could endure more pain and survive worse injuries. She showed the results to Jake. He stared at the numbers in disbelief. Tommy had similar findings with technology. The Devourer weapons were powerful, but they followed simple patterns. Their tactics were predictable. They relied on overwhelming force, not clever strategy. On the fourth day, their hiding came to an end. 3 Devourer warships appeared on their scanners. They were heading straight for the horizon. Jake ordered everyone to battle stations. Danny armed the defensive systems. Lisa powered up the engines. Tommy rerouted all available power to shields and weapons. The lead Devourer ship sent a message. It was short and brutal. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. There would be no negotiation. Jake responded. He told them the Horizon was a human colony ship. They meant no harm. They only wanted to pass through. The Devourer commander laughed. He had never heard of humans. It did not matter. All species either served the Devourers or died. The choice was simple. Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. He gave the order. Prepare for combat. The Devourer ships moved closer. Their weapons charged. Red lights glowed on their hulls. The moment of truth had arrived. Humanity was about to meet the terror of the galaxy face to face. The Devourer ships opened fire first. Bright energy beams shot across space toward the horizon. Lisa threw the ship into a hard turn. The colony vessel was not built for combat, but she flew it like a fighter craft. The beams missed. Barely. The Devourers fired again. This time, Tommy was ready. He activated the shields just in time. The energy hit the barrier and scattered into space. Danny watched the enemy ships carefully. He studied their attack patterns. After the third volley, he saw it. They always fired from the same positions. They always used the same timing. They were predictable. He told Lisa where to move. She listened and followed his directions. The next barrage of enemy fire hit empty space. The horizon was already gone, dancing between the shots like it knew where they would be. The Devourer commander was confused. His ships had destroyed hundreds of vessels. None had ever dodged their weapons like this. He ordered his fleet to surround the human ship. Jake saw the trap forming. He had to act fast. He ordered Danny to prepare boarding teams. Danny looked shocked. Board enemy ships? With what soldiers? They only had a small security team. Jake smiled. They did not need many soldiers. They had something better. They had humans. The Devourer boarding pods launched toward the horizon. Dozens of armored aliens crammed into each pod. They expected an easy victory. They had done this countless times before. The pods attached to the hull. The aliens cut through the airlock. They poured into the corridors, weapons ready. But the humans were waiting. Danny led the defense. He had only 15 security officers, but they moved like ghosts. The Devourers were slow and clumsy in comparison. Their armor made them even slower. The first Devourer soldier raised his weapon. Before he could fire, Danny was already behind him. A quick strike to the back of the neck, and the alien fell. His armor was tough, but the joints were weak. The other security officers copied the technique. They moved between the aliens like water, striking fast and disappearing before return fire could hit them. The Devourers fell one by one. In the command center, Jake watched the security feeds. The aliens were shocked. They had never faced resistance like this. Their communications filled with panic. Within 10 minutes, the boarding party was defeated. Not a single human casualty. Danny reported that they had captured several aliens and secured their equipment. The Devourer commander could not believe the reports. His elite boarding team, destroyed by a handful of defenders. It was impossible. He decided to use heavier weapons. The 3 warships powered up their main guns. These weapons could crack planets. The horizon would be dust in seconds. But Tommy had been busy. While the boarding action happened, he studied the Devourer weapon signatures. He found something interesting. Their guns all used the same frequency. They all charged the same way. He created a counter-frequency and boosted the shields. When the Devourers fired their massive guns, something unexpected happened. The beams hit the shields and bounced back. Not all of them, but enough. One reflected beam struck a Devourer ship in the engine section. The ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. Debris scattered across space. The other two ships stopped firing. Their commander demanded to know what sorcery this was. How could a simple colony ship defeat his weapons? Jake smiled. It was not sorcery. It was human ingenuity. Tommy had done in minutes what the Devourers had never considered. He adapted. He learned. He improvised. Lisa saw an opportunity. While the enemy was confused, she accelerated toward them. The Horizon was still a colony ship, massive and heavy. It could be used as a weapon. She aimed for the second warship. The Devourers tried to move, but they were too slow. The Horizon clipped the enemy vessel with a glancing blow. The impact crushed the warship and sent it spinning into the debris field. Now only one enemy ship remained. The commander knew he was beaten. He ordered a retreat. His ship turned and began charging its faster-than-light drive. Jake wanted to let them go, but Danny disagreed. If that ship escaped, it would report back. More Devourers would come. Stronger forces. They could not allow it. Danny fired the last of their missiles. The weapons were old, designed for clearing space debris. But they were fast. They caught the Devourer ship just as it jumped to light speed. The explosion was massive. The faster-than-light drive ruptured, taking the entire ship with it. Nothing remained but scattered atoms. The command center was silent. The crew could not believe what they had done. They had destroyed 3 Devourer warships with a colony vessel. It should have been impossible. Dr. Karen checked on the wounded. Amazingly, there were only minor injuries. A few bruises from the combat. 1 broken arm from the ship impacts. Nothing serious. Jake addressed the crew. He told them they had proven something important today. Humanity was not weak. They were not helpless. The Devourers had terrorized the galaxy for 2 centuries. But they had never met humans before. That night, Jake could not sleep. He kept thinking about the battle. The Devourers had been so confident, so certain of victory. They never adapted. They never changed tactics. They just relied on superior numbers and firepower. But numbers and firepower were not everything. Humans had survived ice ages and plagues. They had conquered their own world through adaptation and creativity. Those same qualities would serve them well among the stars. The question now was what to do next. They could run and hide, find a quiet world and build their colony. Or they could fight back, help the species suffering under Devourer rule. Jake knew what his choice would be. But this was not his decision alone. Tomorrow, he would wake more people. They would discuss their future together. For now, the Horizon drifted silently through space, a sleeping giant that had just awakened. 2 days after the battle, the Horizon picked up a distress signal. It was close, coming from a damaged ship drifting near a dead moon. Jake ordered Lisa to investigate. The ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle. Its hull was scarred with weapon burns. Life support was failing. Danny led a rescue team across in suits. They found 6 aliens inside. 4 were dead, but 2 were still breathing. Danny carried them back to the Horizon carefully. They were so light, like carrying children. Dr. Karen worked for hours to save them. Their biology was strange, but she managed to stabilize them both. When they finally woke up, they were terrified of the humans. One was named Zek. He had 4 arms and smooth gray skin. His large eyes blinked nervously as he looked at Jake. The other was Mira. She had blue scales and spoke in a musical voice that the translator struggled with. Jake tried to calm them down. He explained that they were safe. The Horizon was a human ship. They had rescued Zek and Mira from certain death. Zek asked a question that made Jake pause. What were humans? He had never heard of them before. Neither had Mira. In all their years traveling the galaxy, they had never encountered this species. Jake explained about Earth, about the colony mission, about waking up to find everything changed. Zek listened carefully and then started to cry. Actual tears ran down his gray face. He told them his story. Zek was a scholar from the Keltorian Empire. His people were peaceful. They loved learning and art. They built beautiful cities and studied the stars. Then the Devourers came. They gave the Keltorians one chance to surrender. When the Keltorians refused, the Devourers burned their home world. Billions died in a single day. The few survivors became slaves. Mira had a similar story. She was from the Astran Confederacy. Her people were traders and explorers. They had colonies across dozens of systems. The Devourers destroyed them all. She joined the resistance afterward. Small groups fighting back against impossible odds. They sabotaged Devourer facilities. They rescued prisoners when they could. But they were losing. Slowly, surely, the resistance was dying. Jake asked the question everyone was thinking. How did the Devourers conquer so much so quickly? The galaxy was huge. There were hundreds of species. Zek explained. The Devourers were not particularly advanced. Their technology was good, but not exceptional. What made them dangerous was their ruthlessness. They showed no mercy. They accepted no surrender except total submission. Most species tried to negotiate. They offered trade deals and peace treaties. The Devourers used those negotiations to study their enemies. Then they attacked when defenses were down. Mira added more details. The Devourers had massive numbers. They bred quickly and built ships faster than anyone could destroy them. Even when they lost battles, they had more forces ready. Dr. Karen asked if she could examine them. Both aliens agreed nervously. She ran medical scans and compared the data to human biology. What she found was shocking. She called Jake and the senior crew to the medical bay. She showed them the results. Zek and Mira were physically weak compared to humans. Their bones were fragile. Their muscles were underdeveloped. Their reaction speeds were slow. Tommy checked the Devourer bodies from the boarding action. Same results. Even the feared Devourers were weaker than average humans. What humanity considered normal was extraordinary by galactic standards. Mira asked about the battle. How did the Horizon defeat 3 warships? Jake told her the story. Mira and Zek listened in amazement. They could not believe a colony ship had won. Zek asked to see the security footage. Danny showed him the recordings of the boarding action. Zek watched human security officers move between the Devourers like they were standing still. His eyes went wide. Mira whispered something in her language. The translator called it a prayer. She believed the humans were sent by fate to save the galaxy. Jake felt uncomfortable with that. They were not saviors. They were just colonists who got lost. But Mira insisted. The humans had abilities no other species possessed. Speed, strength, adaptability. They could turn the tide. She explained that the resistance needed help desperately. They had weapons and ships hidden away. What they lacked were fighters who could match the Devourers in combat. Humans could be those fighters. Jake called a meeting with his senior crew. They discussed the situation for hours. Some wanted to find a safe world and start their colony. Others wanted to help the resistance. Danny made a strong point. If they ran and hid, the Devourers would eventually find them. There was no safe place while this empire existed. The only real safety was to fight back. Lisa agreed. She said they had a moral duty to help. The galaxy was suffering. Billions were enslaved. If humans had the power to make a difference, they should use it. Tommy was practical. He noted that fighting would be dangerous. Many humans could die. But doing nothing guaranteed that future generations would live in fear. Better to fight now than later. Dr. Karen surprised everyone. She had always been peaceful and gentle. But she said the Devourers reminded her of a disease. Sometimes you had to cut out the infection to save the patient. The galaxy needed healing. Jake made the final decision. They would fight. But first, they needed more people. He ordered the crew to begin waking the colonists. Not everyone at once, but enough to form a proper fighting force. Mira offered to guide them to her resistance cell. They had a hidden base in an asteroid field 3 systems away. There, the humans could meet other survivors and plan their first real strike against the Devourers. As the Horizon set course for the asteroid field, Jake felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. They had come to the stars seeking peace. Instead, they found war. But maybe Just maybe, they could bring peace through victory. The sleeping giant of humanity was waking up, and the galaxy would never be the same. The asteroid field looked like any other patch of dead rock floating in space. But hidden among the rocks was a sprawling base. Dozens of ships were tucked into carved-out caverns. Mira guided the horizon through the narrow passages. The resistance fighters were shocked when they saw humans for the first time. Aliens of different species stared at Jake and his crew. Some looked hopeful. Others looked scared. All of them looked tired from years of losing battles. Jake began waking more colonists. He focused on those with military experience. Veterans from Earth wars. Soldiers who knew how to fight. Among them was Lieutenant Kevin Palmer, a man who had spent 20 years planning military operations. Kevin woke up angry and confused. The last thing he remembered was boarding the Horizon for a peaceful colony mission. Now Jake was telling him they needed to fight an alien empire. It took hours to explain everything. Once Kevin understood the situation, his military mind took over. He wanted tactical data, ship specifications, enemy positions, resource inventories. He turned the mess hall into a command center covered with charts and maps. Next awake was Sergeant Nicole Reed. She had been Special Forces on Earth. Small, quick, and absolutely deadly. She took one look at the Devourer equipment Danny had captured and smiled. She knew exactly how to use it against them. The third military specialist was Commander Alan Foster. He had commanded naval vessels during Earth conflicts. He studied the captured Devourer ships and started making plans. Crazy plans. Brilliant plans. Alan proposed something radical. Instead of defending the base, they should attack. Hit the Devourers where they were weak. Strike their supply lines and disappear before reinforcements arrived. The resistance leaders thought he was insane. They had tried offensive operations before. Every time, the Devourers crushed them. Their empire was too large. Their forces too numerous. But Alan explained his reasoning. The Devourers controlled 70% of the galaxy. That meant their forces were spread thin. They relied on fear to keep conquered worlds obedient. If that fear was broken, the empire would crack. Kevin supported the plan. He identified 3 Devourer supply stations within striking distance. Each station was lightly defended. The Devourers never expected attacks so deep in their territory. Jake gave the order. They would hit all 3 stations simultaneously. Fast attacks with small teams. The resistance would provide ships and support. The humans would provide the fighters. Over the next week, they trained. Nicole taught resistance fighters human combat techniques. Most aliens could not match human speed, but they could learn the tactics. Strike from cover. Move constantly. Never give the enemy a static target. Tommy worked with alien engineers to upgrade their ships. He installed the shield modifications that had worked on the Horizon. He improved their weapons targeting. He made their small fleet much more dangerous. Finally, the day came. 3 strike teams launched from the asteroid base. Each team had 5 human soldiers and 20 resistance fighters. They traveled in fast ships designed for hit-and-run attacks. Kevin led the attack on the first station. It was a fuel depot orbiting a gas giant. 2 Devourer patrol ships guarded it. Kevin's team came in fast and low, using the planet's rings as cover. The patrol ships detected them too late. Kevin's gunner, a human named Pete Clark, destroyed one ship with the opening salvo. The second ship tried to run, but Lisa was piloting. She caught them and Nicole finished them with missiles. They boarded the station using the same techniques that worked on the Horizon. The Devourer garrison never stood a chance. Human soldiers moved through the corridors like ghosts. Within 20 minutes, the station was secured. Nicole led the second attack on a munitions facility. Her team included a human medic named Chris Lopez and 3 others. They disguised their ship as a Devourer supply vessel and flew straight to the docking bay. By the time the Devourers realized the trick, Nicole's team was already inside. They planted explosives throughout the facility and retreated. The explosion destroyed enough ammunition to supply an entire battle fleet. The third team, led by a human captain named Greg Morris, hit a communication relay. These relays allowed the Devourers to coordinate across vast distances. Destroying one would blind them in an entire sector. Greg's attack was the riskiest. The relay had better defenses than the other targets. 4 patrol ships and a garrison of 200 Devourer soldiers. But Greg had a plan. He sent the resistance fighters in first as a distraction. While the Devourers focused on the obvious threat, Greg and his human team approached from the opposite direction in stealth suits. They infiltrated the relay station and reached the main computer core. Instead of destroying it immediately, they downloaded all the data first. Intelligence on Devourer fleet movements, garrison locations, supply routes. Everything. Then they set the reactor to overload and escaped. The relay exploded just as the Devourer reinforcements arrived. The intel they captured was priceless. All 3 teams returned to the asteroid base within hours of each other. Not a single human casualty. A few wounded resistance fighters, but everyone survived. The mission was a complete success. The news spread across the resistance network. Humans had struck the Devourers and won. 3 major facilities destroyed in a single day. Species that had been hiding in fear started to whisper. Maybe there was hope after all. But the Devourers were not going to ignore this. Their high command was furious. An unknown species had appeared from nowhere and humiliated them. Fleet Commander Thrax was ordered to find these humans and destroy them. Thrax was given 50 warships, a massive battle group designed to crush any opposition. He studied the reports from the destroyed stations. These humans were dangerous, but they were also few in number. Superior force would overwhelm them. Meanwhile, Jake and Alan studied the intelligence Greg had captured. They found something interesting. A major Devourer fleet was gathering near the Keltorian home system. They were planning something big. Zek recognized the location. His people, what remained of them, were enslaved there in work camps. If the humans could strike that fleet before it launched its operation, they could save millions of lives. It was a huge risk. The fleet gathering at Keltoria was much larger than anything they had faced. But Alan had a plan. A crazy plan. Jake listened, and despite his doubts, he knew it might work. The humans were about to face their biggest test yet. The Keltorian system was a graveyard. Dead stations orbited the ruined home world. The once beautiful cities were now slave camps. And in high orbit, 50 Devourer warships waited in formation. Fleet Commander Thrax sat in his command chair and reviewed his forces with satisfaction. This was the largest battle group he had ever commanded. These humans would not escape. They would die, and their resistance would die with them. But Thrax made a mistake. He expected the humans to run or hide. He expected them to be afraid. Instead, the horizon appeared at the edge of the system with a dozen resistance ships beside it. Alan stood beside Jake in the command center. His plan was simple in concept but difficult in execution. They would not fight the Devourer fleet directly. That would be suicide. Instead, they would fight like humans always fought when outnumbered. They would be clever. The operation was called Wildfire. Small human strike teams would board the Devourer capital ships during the battle. They would take the ships from within while the fleet engaged from outside. Thrax laughed when he saw the human fleet. 13 ships against 50. It was not even a fair fight. He ordered his forces to advance and crush them. The battle began. The Devourer ships opened fire with everything they had. But the human and resistance vessels scattered like leaves in the wind. They moved in patterns the Devourers had never seen before. Unpredictable. Chaotic. Beautiful. Lisa flew the horizon like it was a fighter craft. She dove between enemy ships, forcing them to scatter to avoid collisions. Tommy had upgraded every system. The colony ship was now a weapon. While the fleets engaged, boarding pods launched from hidden positions. Dozens of them. Each pod carried 5 human soldiers and their equipment. Kevin led the largest team heading for the flagship. The pods attached to Devourer ships across the battlespace. The aliens inside were focused on the external fight. They never suspected infiltrators. By the time they realized what was happening, human soldiers were already inside. Kevin's team cut through the flagship hull. They moved through the corridors in perfect formation. Nicole had trained them well. Every soldier knew their role. Every movement was calculated. The Devourer crew tried to stop them. They had superior numbers. They had the home advantage. But it did not matter. The humans were faster, stronger, better trained. They flowed through the ship like water finding cracks. On other ships, similar scenes played out. Greg Morris captured the engine room of a battlecruiser. Pete Clark seized a destroyer's weapon systems. Chris Lopez and his medic team took over a carrier's hangar bay. Nicole led her own team to the flagship's bridge. She moved like a shadow, taking down guards before they could raise the alarm. Her team reached the bridge doors and planted breaching charges. The explosion blew the doors inward. Nicole was through before the smoke cleared. Thrax looked up in shock as human soldiers poured onto his bridge. He reached for his weapon, but Nicole was already there. She disarmed him with a single move. Thrax fell to his knees. He had commanded fleets. He had conquered worlds. But he had never faced anything like this. These humans moved with a grace and speed that seemed impossible. Kevin reached the bridge moments later. He ordered Thrax to contact his fleet. Tell them to stand down. Thrax refused at first. Then Kevin showed him the tactical display. 15 Devourer ships had been captured from within. More were falling every minute. Thrax realized the truth. He had lost. Not through superior firepower. Not through greater numbers. He had lost because he underestimated his enemy. He sent the stand-down order. The Devourer fleet stopped firing. One by one, the ships powered down their weapons. Some tried to escape, but the captured vessels pursued them. Within an hour, 30 ships had surrendered. The rest were destroyed or fleeing. The victory at Keltoria sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The news traveled faster than light. The Devourers, who had seemed invincible, had been defeated. Not just defeated, but humiliated. Enslaved populations began to rise up. On dozens of worlds, the work camps erupted in rebellion. The Devourer garrison forces were stretched thin, unable to respond to every uprising. Species that had hidden in fear now joined the resistance. They had seen what humans could do. If these newcomers could fight back successfully, maybe others could too. The empire that had seemed eternal suddenly looked fragile. Jake stood on the bridge of the captured flagship and watched the Keltorian planet below. Zek was beside him, tears running down his face. His home world was still scarred, but it could heal now. His people could be free. Mira reported that resistance cells across the galaxy were coordinating. They wanted to know what the humans would do next. Would they lead the fight against the remaining Devourer forces? Jake gathered his crew and the military leaders. He told them the truth. They were colonists, not conquerors. But they could not turn away from this fight. The galaxy needed them. Alan proposed a new strategy. They would wake more colonists. Not just soldiers, but engineers, doctors, teachers. They would help rebuild what the Devourers had destroyed. Show the galaxy that humanity came in peace, even if they fought when necessary. Kevin suggested forming a galactic defense force. Train other species in human combat techniques. Share their technology and tactics. Make the entire galaxy too strong for any empire to conquer again. Dr. Karen wanted to establish medical centers on liberated worlds. The years of war had left countless wounded. She could train alien doctors in human medical practices. Save lives instead of taking them. Lisa offered to teach alien pilots. Show them the maneuvers that had made human ships so effective. Share the creativity and instinct that came naturally to humans but could be learned by others. Tommy wanted to upgrade the resistance fleet. Take the captured Devourer ships and make them better. Combine alien technology with human innovation. Create vessels that could protect the newly freed worlds. Jake listened to each proposal. They were all good ideas. They would all be needed. The fight was not over. The Devourer Empire still controlled huge regions of space. But the tide had turned. He made his decision. They would do all of it. Fight when they must. Heal when they could. Teach. Build. Protect. That was the human way. They adapted to whatever situation they faced. Jake ordered the Horizon back to the asteroid base. It was time to wake more colonists. Not just the 10,000 on their ship, but eventually all the sleeping humans scattered across the other colony vessels that had launched from Earth. The galaxy had terrorized itself for 200 years under Devourer rule. Fear had been the Empire's greatest weapon. But now a new force had arrived. Humans brought something the galaxy had forgotten: hope. As the Horizon jumped to light speed, Jake looked at the stars around them. Somewhere out there, more colony ships drifted. More humans slept in cryopods. When they woke, they would find a galaxy at war. But they would also find purpose. Humanity had not come to the stars seeking glory. They came seeking new homes. But fate had given them a different role. They would be the shield that protected the weak, the sword that struck down tyrants, the light that pushed back darkness. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same again.